This is the last tutorial in the short series I'm doing about adding color to your models for 3D printing. So you should know by now how to unwrap and how to put an image on your model. What I want to talk about here is baking in some shadows, and that is highly debatable. You don't just bake shadows, by the way, you can bake pretty much anything. Shadows in particular though. You see, if you have a model, this guy has been printed in pure white, and look at him on screen here. He has shadows. He has shadows because he is in a room where there is light, and he is casting shadows on himself, and everything around him is casting shadows on him. So if I were to bake shadows into this while he is printed, he would become shadow on shadow on shadow, really dark, which is something that happened here. This is a copy of Sintel that I did, and I baked a lot of shadows into her, and the end result is extremely dark. She's got a black bit on her face. It's not always nice. At the same time, I have this little guy. This is Doris. You might have seen him before. He does have a little shadow as well, and it works really well, especially with a guy like you can see on screen. If we give him that, it gives him a little bit more of a spacious sort of feel. It looks even more 3D, and it's also a really nice starting point if you want to paint externally. So what I want to do is bake some shadows, maybe look at baking some textures in there as well. Baking in Blender basically uses the render technology. That's what we use to make an image out of a 3D file or an animated movie. So what we want to do is look at what this little guy on screen looks like if we render him, because what we can render, we can bake. Before I can render, I have to add a camera. There was no camera in this scene, so I will add a camera, and here is the guy. Then look at my render settings here, and this is too big, 1920 by 1080. It's 80 and 50% of it. I'll make it 25. I'm just testing. 5 points of anti-aliasing is enough. And render. He's completely black. That's not so strange because he's the only thing in my scene. There is no lamp. If there's no lamp, everything turns black. Not very odd. I'll go to the world settings and add some ambient occlusion and render again. That's pretty quick. I can think we can make it quicker if we use approximate and enable the pixel cache. This was 0.37 of a second, 0.36. Hey, it's quicker. You know, I'll take it. So we have a blue guy. The setting that makes him blue, we'll select him, because he looks like this, but he's not rendered like this. What we're looking at here is a textured view, and a textured view basically shows you what you get if you're working on a computer game, which we're not. We are rendering him, so put him in solid view, and that's the color you get from the material that is applied. So this is the material that gives him his nice color. Make it a little more intense, render again, he's a little bit brighter. This color and this shadow we can bake, but we have to have an image to bake to. Right now our UV texture is still the orange image. If I were to bake now, I would replace this image with whatever the bake results in. So I will remove this here. Of course the image is saved on my hard disk somewhere, I don't lose it. I can add a new image, 1024 by 1024, untitled. Don't care about the title or any of this, I just need a new image. This is the image assigned to everything. Go back to object mode. Now I go to rendering again, but I don't hit the render or animation button. I go all the way to the bottom. There we have a bake panel. In the bake panel, well, I'll leave it at default. I'll just do a full render. That gives us the color and the shadow and everything, and I'll bake it. Takes a little bit longer than a regular render, but not too much. Here we go. This is our brand new image texture. If I go to edit mode, you see it's assigned to all my points here, and I can go into textured view and see the result. This I can save and I can send to a 3D printer if I want. I would have to save this image and apply it. So this is nice. I have the blue color. Now what if I want to do a little bit more than just adding color? I want to, for instance, add some light to it as well. Let's add a very cheap sun lamp to the scene. This is a very simple way to add even more light. And I'll just bake again. Hit, ooh, okay. This is something you get sometimes. No object or images found to bake to. One thing it can mean is that you have an unwrap, but you didn't make an image. That's happened to me a lot. This one is just because I have a lamp selected, so it thinks I'm trying to bake the lamp. There is no texture on the lamp to bake to. That's, yeah, makes sense. So I'll select my guy and I want to bake this guy. Now, it's not showing us the result because it was still baking. It's done now, and you can see there is more light on it. So even in local view, textured view, there is some nice light. I can see it's very blocky here. That's in the image as well. It is blocky because I didn't smooth him. The shading is flat. I want it to be smooth instead. Just hit smooth. We go and bake again. Should be a better result. Watch for the little change. There we go. Perfectly smooth. This isn't perfect, but that is because the unwrap, look, the unwrap isn't clean. This should be over here a little bit. I shouldn't do this because it will mess up the previous things I unwrapped, but this is a good way to find out what is wrong. So I've unwrapped this again, and let's bake again and see the difference. Doing a clean unwrap is really, there we go. There's a little change. Looks much better now. And on top of the head there was something weird. No, looks good. So this is baking a regular texture. Let's add something to the material because this was the bake. This is the normal color. Maybe I don't want to render with just the normal color, but I want to add something to it. I'll go to a texture and add a new one. These are the default clouds. If I render with the default clouds, this is what you get. I can actually bake with this as well, because that's what I get when I render. If I keep it on full render and I bake, this takes a little bit longer because we have the texture on here, but not that long. I can go and view it in here again. And there we go. This is what we got baked with the texture. So this is clouds. Clouds in their ugly default pink. Why don't we put the original orange image on there and get that with a little extra light and shadow? We have the guy. I will go back in here. And in the material, go to the texture. I don't want clouds. I want an image. I want my image, which was texture.png. You can click here to see it on this little icon at the top here. This is a preview. I did do this once before. I had to practice. I'll open the image, and if I render it right now, it should already work. But look, if I render, that doesn't look, the face isn't in the right position. That's because it's using the generated coordinates. That's down here at the mapping. I wanted to use the UV coordinates. So if I render, you see he's there with the face and the tummy, but with added shadows. So I'll go out of the render window. That's F11, by the way. It's really helpful. You can go back and forth between your previous render and whatever is in the window normally. I have the texture assigned. Go to rendering and bake the full render. Just wait a moment. And there we go. I have my orange texture for the little guy with added shadows and light. If I now want to export him for 3D rendering, see the image has been changed. There's a little star behind it. I can say save my image, save as image, I will call it my baked texture. This is a nice feature in Blender. If I select an existing one, this turns red. Fine, I want to save over it. I save the file, then export as a WRL or an X3D. Both should work. WRL, yep, that's the file name I already tested with. It does work. I want to make sure, here's something to really look out for. Always look at the settings at the bottom left when you're exporting. I do not want to export vertex colors. I just want the texture / UVs, and in this case I only want my selection. I can export and I am done. This is it. He's got color. He has been baked with some shadow and some light. That's pretty much all I have to say on texturing and color.